This is the Dynasty Roundtable podcast, and tonight we're going to dive into some strategy. These are the topics that I really like to sink my teeth into. Matt does too. And we're going to start with the rebuild. We're going to start with the dreaded rebuild. You know, maybe you're sitting out there, your team is 0-5, 1-4. You got a lot of injuries, or maybe you took over an orphan and you knew this was coming. We're here to help you tonight. We're here to talk you through the correct way to rebuild your dynasty fantasy football team. But first, Matt Babich, how you doing, man?
Doing great. This is always, well, first of all, I can't even believe I forgot the topic of the evening. I didn't have time to put Mr. May back up here in the display. I need to figure out a different order of things to get the jersey maybe a little bit more visible. But Drake May, man, let's clap it up for Mr. Drake May.
Feels like it wasn't a game that is gonna show up in the box score or in the fantasy point like category. But man, he just figured out how to win a football game. Like, you feel like your quarterback, that feels like a game where you're like, okay, we got our guy. If we didn't know, now we know, you know.
Super Bowl favorite, division rival, who's had your number for the past 5-6+ years. You walk in prime time Sunday night, you go to their barn, and you make big throw after big throw after big throw, and you make a play that's so stunning late in the game as you're falling down that you get are you kidding me, from Chris Collinsworth. I mean, he just doesn't hand those out, Seth. Those are usually reserved for an 8-yard Mahomes scramble for a first down, but instead, Drake May delivering a game-winning drive after a first quarter that was just, awful in terms of execution.
Yeah.
Poor play from the Patriots. A lot of bad penalties. There's still a lot of cleaning up to do. But, man, if there's one thing we have our franchise quarterback, and it feels so good to be able to say that. I'm never going to pretend that I went through some sort of hardship, all right? Like, I'm not –
yeah.
You could boo me in the chat all you want or in the comments. I fully deserve it. But it feels really good. Whether I deserve it or not, it's still the first time I've seen a new quarterback come into this team and become the guy, and it's a cool feeling.
Yeah, let me know how maybe I can feel that way someday about the Bears. Maybe we're still waiting, but maybe
I
Caleb.
still think there's enough with Caleb Williams. I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid, but I still think there's enough with Caleb Williams for him to be an above average NFL quarterback.
And maybe it's because I've been a beaten down, just abused Bears fan for all these years, but I think the true litmus test of whether or not you have a franchise quarterback is, how do you feel when your team gets the ball down 7 at the 25, 30-yard line in your own territory? If you feel like, okay, we got a shot here, you've got your franchise quarterback. And I don't quite feel that way with Caleb yet, but maybe I will.
This week could be huge. If he comes out to play against Washington, we're talking about a potential career turnaround game against Jaden Daniels, the Hail Mary last year. You shake that off with a really good performance. Yep. Like, that truly is something, because I fully believe that belief and confidence are so important with a quarterback. Maybe Caleb was a little bit more developmentally behind than we thought going into his career, but we've seen guys like, I think he has the talent that Sam Darnold has. I do. Maybe I'm dumb for that. I'm not a great quarterback evaluator, but I do. And I think in the right system with someone who believes in him, I think he can make something happen. And we've seen shades of that. Can they continue to just shake off the slot again, like the Patriots? Can they shake off the sloppiness? Can Caleb, really start to hone in? Because there are times where he's dialed. And when he's dialed, you see that ceiling that we thought he had. It's just continuing to string those plays together over the course of a game. But he looks so much better to me than he did last season. And I think sometimes with the fact that he's still not playing to an elite level, we have a tendency to forget that. But he has looked so much better than he did last year.
Agreed. And Yeah, it's funny to think of the Washington game last year where they literally were a Hail Mary away from winning the game, and I think they were 4-2 at the time. I could be wrong.
Oh,
Maybe
they
they were
collapsed.
3-2.
It was something close, but they
Yeah.
collapsed as a team after that. Collapsed.
Yeah, it was that was the end for Matt Eberflus. But enough of us pontificating and self-congratulating our quarterbacks on our preferred NFL teams. Let's get into your dynasty teams because we're here to help you tonight. And I'm going to start off, and I'm just going to say this. There's no, in my opinion, and maybe there's some self-help book out there. Maybe there's some analyst that knows the easiest path to rebuild your dynasty team. But in my experience, and I've been doing this a while, and I've rebuilt teams. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years based on the team. Like obviously you want to avoid that at all costs. But if you're taking over an orphan, it might take a while, and there are no shortcuts to doing this. You have, I think it's a simple, straightforward strategy, and we're going to get into the different things that you can do. But I just wanted to say that right off the bat because it is an uphill battle, especially if you enter a league where, like in your league, in the All Elite Dynasty League, I joined that, and I've made, I don't know, 3 or 4 trades, and I'm trying to make more, and I'm trying to pick up players off the waiver wire, and I'm trying to do all the steps that I preach. And I think I've made some progress, but man, I look around at that league and some of those teams, and I'm going, oh boy, this might be a couple years, especially in a 10-man league like that league is. But what are your thoughts right off the jump about a rebuild and dynasty?
Yeah, so I think the worst thing you could do is be stagnant. And I've fallen victim to this multiple times. And it could even, it sounds silly because we were playing a game of fantasy football. But the difference between saying, I'll look at trades next week can mean the world of difference for you. Let's say you are a rebuilding team that has magically gotten the reincarnation of Travis Etienne. And you say to yourself, one more week. And then Bashul Tutin goes off, or Travis Etienne goes down with an injury. You've just lost yourself an asset to help you later down the road. So you have to be willing to start early. And I think right now, potentially even as last week, but if you're watching this video now, right now is the right time to start doing this. If you're 1-4, 0-5. Yes, if this were a redraft team, I would tell you, stay in it and try and make trades, waiver wire, do what you can, try and win. You can always rattle off a win streak, but you have to be realistic, which is another tip, and say to yourself, do I have the means, even if I make the playoffs, to beat the 3 seed who has, 2 steady quarterbacks? They drafted Judkins in the first round last year, and they already had a good RB room. Do I really have the facilities to take this team on in the playoffs without just a stroke of massive luck? And if you can't, it's time to make those moves. And Seth, you made a move in the All Elite League that a lot of us thought was questionable. But you know what? No matter how it turns out, you made the move. You made a move to try and acquire that you thought could acquire you value. Who knows? We often look at trades that are made 3 years ago, 4 years ago in Dynasty and laugh at all of the things. There are multiple points within that range where someone won that trade and someone lost that trade. There are ebbs and flows. You just got to make moves. You have to be willing to swing and miss. So don't be stagnant. Make moves. Be willing to swing and miss because you're going to. You're trying to turn this into a competitive team, and that's going to require some risk because one way or another, you're either going to miss on a prospect, you're going to misevaluate a player, something's going to happen that's going to go wrong. You just got to take it on the chin and do what you can to keep making moves. And if you continue to make moves that are what we would call plus EV, adding expected value into your lineup, you're getting better, whether it's assets or players. You just got to be willing to make moves.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom to that, and trying to, first of all, like figuring out if your team is a rebuild. I think it's there's all kinds of tools out there that can help you. I think Dynasty Daddy is one. I've used it before. You mentioned, being honest with yourself, looking at other teams in the league and seeing where you stack up against the playoff teams. Typically, unless my team is downright terrible, and again, I'm fairly confident in my process at this point. I just sat down the other day and was doing an inventory of what teams are doing good and what teams are not, and where my rosters stack up, and etc. And just figuring out whatever works for you to determine whether or not, okay, it's time to see what and you could do a soft rebuild too. I mean, you could trade away some veterans and get some youth, and maybe the next year, maybe this year was just unfortunate. Maybe you had Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, some of these guys that have gotten hurt, Joe Burrow in a super flex, that would have been a devastating blow. So maybe that's where you're at too. So I think we can cover all of our bases here and cover some Dynasty 101 strategy and cover some advanced tips for some guys. I think we're going to cover a little bit of everything here, but my number one tip, and this sounds so simple, but I think it gets overlooked, is you have to remain in constant contact with your league. And I think this is also how leagues stay relevant and how leagues don't die. If there has to be some chatter in the league, and I've told you before, if there's ever a reason for me to leave a league, it's typically not really the state of my team. It's the state of, well, I can't even rebuild this team because nobody in this league is making any trades or talking at all. So getting in those DMs, Sleeper makes it very easy. And I have probably, I don't know, 40 or 50 like DMs open right now, like where I'm chatting with people, some people I don't even know, just talking trades in these leagues and figuring out what they want, figuring out what, they need on their team, figuring out what kind of, maybe like all this information that you can divulge from them is valuable, and figuring out how your league values picks, how your league values players. Does your league value picks more than other leagues? Does the league value, veterans more highly than other leagues? All of this information can help you to do exactly what Matt is telling you to do. Get as much value as possible, because there's multiple paths to rebuild. Like, you could do it through the picks. I think that's the most straightforward way. But you could also go the route of buying the undervalued players, the players that are injured, the players that are not performing up to par. I mean, Caleb Johnson has to be just a smash buy for a rebuild team. I mean, that to me, that's an obvious one, because I think Caleb Johnson is still good. He's just on the Steelers right now, and he has Mike Tomlin as the head coach, who's stubborn and old school. And he has Arthur Smith, who prefers to play Tyler Algier over Bijan Robinson at times. Like, so it's just one of those things. But that would be the first thing that I would say is, like, communication is so underrated, both in marriage and in life and in Dynasty, So just get in those DMs, figure out what your league mates want, and try to deliver that if you can. I had a DM with somebody in your league that's basically said, yeah, I'm not interested in any of the players on your team outside of the ones that you probably wouldn't trade me. And I said, all right, fair enough. Good to know. But you have to have those conversations sometimes. So what do you think about that? And maybe go, if once you're done adding to that, head on to your next tip there, Mr. Babbage.
Yeah, I think you said multiple things that kind of resonated with where I was going next. But one thing that popped in my head when you were talking was, have you ever seen a clip? I'm sure everyone here has seen a clip on social media at one point or another of a draft day trade in the NFL happening. There's always a call, generally between the GMs, and almost 100% of the time you can sense familiarity in the conversation that's happening because they know each other. Like, you're never going to have an NFL GM that picks up the phone And on the other end is a GM who's never spoken to him in his life, trying to get a deal done. So there's a level of familiarity too of just, hey, maybe they're not interested in any people on your roster right now. But then somebody, maybe you had a Ryan Flournoy in your deep bench league, and after a couple of weeks has shown some promise, and maybe that player has CeeDee Lamb and he wants to throw you a late pick to maybe have him for a couple more weeks.
Or an injury pops up or something, and they all of a sudden the deep running back room they thought they had is not so deep anymore. Yeah, you never know.
Right. There's so many outs. There's so many different ways, and kind of takes me to my next point, which is there are two distinct cycles in Dynasty. Or I guess you can technically say it's one large cycle, but in season, who's more valuable? Players, because over half the league is trying to win a title, or at least half the league is trying to win a title. And so those players inherently are less and less valuable as the season goes on, which is part of the reason why I'm saying hop on this now. There will be obviously injuries that happen, people that pop up from different aspects, rookies, trades, waiver, I guess NFL waiver wire additions. There's always, a quarterback or a running back that pops up out of nowhere. But mostly your players are coming close to their value peak on the season. You trade them for picks, mostly because the undervalued player is going to be just as undervalued when it comes time to draft those players. And guess what? Everyone has rookie fever. The people who traded you your picks really want that first round rookie that they're missing out on. And when you hold the cards there, you have the choice to take a look at the prospects and say, I would rather trade for an undervalued player. I'm going to get out of one of my 2026 firsts because I don't really like what's going on in the back end of the draft. You give yourself so many options when you take advantage of these cycles rather than trying to buy undervalued assets now. You settle for picks, and it gives you way more options because you're not tied to that player's value. You know that asset you're buying is going to increase in interest over the next months.
Yeah, no, you said it. Right now, players are pretty much at their peak value. We're right in the middle of the season, and so trading players for picks right now is a good idea. As we get closer and closer to the draft, those picks, and I've been playing Dynasty since 2017, there's not been a year where people don't go crazy for draft picks. Maybe there was one year, I think it was the David Montgomery draft, which I think it was either the 2018 or
2019 was Montgomery.
Okay, so it must have been 2019 when everybody was saying, oh, this draft class is terrible, and it just produced like Montgomery and A.J. Brown. And anyway,
Josh Jacobs,
Kyler Murray. And I think it wasn't that the one with N'Keal Harry at the top, or was that a different one? Anyway.
Please don't remind me. I took him 101 in my first ever rookie draft. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, many people did that. Many people, man. Tom Brady was never so happy for such a short amount of time. So, yeah, getting picks right now would be my number one thing. I think sometimes it's harder to do because if you're in a league with me, I'm white knuckling those picks. I'm not giving them up unless I'm fairly confident that this is the last move, the cherry on top of my dynasty championship run. And even then I try to build a dynasty team so I don't necessarily need to do that. That's my preferred strategy of just, become an isolationist country. Just sit there sit like a dragon on top of all your gold and say, it's going to take a miracle to beat me. That's obviously the end goal, but you're right. Like the cycles, it's very true. And those picks always increase in value. And if you're a rebuild team, there's something obvious that you have to do. And I think you have to identify the veterans on your team, the players that are over what we call the age apex, meaning there is a certain age for most players. I guess not players like Derrick Henry, but most players, most running backs, they get to age 26, 27. Wide receivers, they get to age 27, 28, and the production tends to go down. they can help out a team that's trying to contend. But for your rebuild, I mean, you have to trade those players basically as soon as you possibly can to capitalize on that value. And there are all sorts of examples of different trades that you can make, and we could discuss those trades. You could leave those questions in the comments. A lot of you have, and we appreciate those trades. But context always matters when you're leaving those comments. So telling us if you're a rebuild team, telling us if you're a contending team really helps. So that can make or break a trade. But trading those veterans, and I know sometimes it feels wrong to trade away a Saquon if you have Saquon, or a Derrick Henry, or one of these other players. But especially if you're in a long rebuild that you think is maybe going to take a couple years, there's really no reason to roster a Derrick Henry. And even if you have to trade him away for, a second and a player or something like that, like I have made trades in the name of the long term that didn't feel good at the time, but a year down the road, 2 years down the road, that pick turned into X player that's helping me out right now. And guess what? I don't know. I can't even think of a good player as an example. Brandon Marshall's retired now. That's probably a terrible example, but you get what I'm trying to say. In the moment, it feels wrong, and it's going to be tough. Like I said, there are no shortcuts to this, but having that long-term goal in mind of being a contending team by X amount. And usually that means, and kind of getting into my next point here, usually means you're tearing down a lot. And usually that means you're taking one asset and making it two, and then taking those assets and making it 3 or 4, and then taking some of those assets and getting picks, and just getting multiple bites at the apple. And to that point, I think getting first round rookie picks, I think, has gotten steadily harder over the years. But getting second and third round rookie picks, I've found, is a lot easier. And sometimes you can acquire multiple second and third round rookie picks from dynasty managers who have accumulated those picks. So going that route too, when you're tearing down, maybe not being focused on necessarily the first round picks, because you don't have to make, because Matt was talking about this, you don't have to make all those rookie picks when it comes rookie time, because the ideal thing you can do is you can identify your veterans that you want to trade them away for rookie picks, younger players, tear down, get a bunch of rookie picks, get a bunch of younger players in exchange for your veterans. Then when it gets time close to the rookie draft, you can say, okay, I have a second round pick. I have the 203, 204. What's a good young player that, rookie fever's upon us? Let's put this on the trade block and let's see what I can go get for it. And I did this in Cody's league, the League of Savages, and I was able to get Michael Pittman for a mid-second. Ricky Pearsall, I think I got for the 203. I know he's been hurt, but that team's doing really good right now. And basically all I did was exactly what I just laid out for you. Is I traded away a bunch of my veterans for picks. People thought I was crazy at the time. Tiered down a bunch. Then when it got time to the rookie draft, yeah, I made some picks, but some of these offers I got in my inbox. Like I didn't even have to do anything. I just looked at it and went, Michael Pittman for the 206 or whatever it was. Maybe it was the 204, 205. Sounds good to me. I think Michael Pittman is undervalued. So that was a move that I made. So doing all of those things in conjunction and just stacking good move on top of good move on top of good move. And then when you really hit on some of those rookie picks, that can really accelerate your rebuild fast.
Absolutely. I think there's 3 points that I think all kind of fit into what you're saying. So I'm going to try and hit all 3 here quickly. First, when you're talking about tearing down and identifying veterans, I have a caveat there where you don't have to exclusively buy pre-age Apex players. Now, I don't think it's very smart to do so in the middle of a season, but in the off season, let's say, because let's be honest, we love second rounds, we love third round picks, but the hit rate on those prospects are not the same thing as a first round pick, particularly when we get later in the second round. So whether you're tearing down in the offseason or you're including some picks in there that you don't love, if you went out, let's say preseason, and you thought, hey, I know I'm rebuilding, but I think this Michael Pittman value is atrocious. I think he's way better than this. And you go out and you spend some reasonable value to acquire Michael Pittman, who is now far more valuable to a contending team than he was 3 months ago. That's a play that can get you value, and you can turn around, and maybe the ROI isn't too excessive, but it pairs with what Seth is saying of just stacking good moves on top of good moves. Sometimes the best moves may not be the flashiest. Maybe it's picking up a little bit of value on somebody who is undervalued preseason. Maybe it's picking up a third and just giving yourself a shot at somebody who can make a difference on a roster. It's the little things. And in conjunction with back to picks and draft prospects, get to know the prospects early. Because the further you get, we hit a point in the NFL offseason cycle where, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of garbage floating out there. When you start hitting the combine and the Senior Bowl, we get a lot of noise. And it's important to follow up on that because that stuff does play into draft capital, which is a big piece of the puzzle. But having priors, having an opinion on these people before that draft process starts, even something as simple as that will give you an edge in knowing the prospects and forming your kind of rankings as you go into the draft season. Because there are a lot of people, especially if you're in more casual leagues, who are going to be more susceptible to what happens in that last couple of months when it's on the airwaves more, when it's on social media more. And what we see generally is you start to get prospect funnel, and you don't really, granted, RJ Harvey didn't hit, right? But he was one of the guys that before the draft process hit, we were keeping an eye on. And then he gets the draft capital. And again, it didn't hit, but it's an example, the first one off the top of my head, of somebody who you paid attention to early. In my mind, Justin Herbert. I was higher on Herbert as a quarterback coming into the class. It was just my own opinion that I formed. And as that draft process went on, you started hearing other names. You didn't hear Herbert as much. And Herbert ended up kind of being the unsung hero of that class. You do have Joe Burrow, but for a long time, people thought it was going to be Tua in that system. So I'm rambling a little bit there, but getting to know your prospects early is going to be a big piece of it.
Yeah, and I would find some trusted analysts, some guys that you like. Maybe that's us. We're going to put out prospect content. God, we started in November last year. We might start even earlier than that. I think our first rookie mock draft was in November, which is insanely early. But anyway, you got to give the people what they want. But yeah, to your point, finding trusted people, analysts, watching some film yourself if you're into that kind of thing, getting to know these prospects. I'm going to start here pretty soon. I haven't even dove into the 2026 class yet, outside of seeing a few clips here and there. So we're going to start that process very, very soon. And it's just so bonkers because, yeah, in hindsight, obviously Justin Herbert over Tua, right? In hindsight, Jalen Reagor was taken one pick before Justin Jefferson in the actual NFL draft. And I was in rookie drafts where Jalen Reagor was going ahead of Justin Jefferson. And, if like looking back on that now, it's wild. I think both of them actually were like late first round picks in your respective rookie draft. And
Jalen Hurts went after Herbert. That was another quarterback from that same class that was forgotten about.
Yep. So getting to know these prospects, getting to know, I would say even NFL teams. Now, I know the Eagles have a pretty good hit rate. So teams that draft these players, do they have a good track record? The Bears, I know they took Caleb Williams, but not necessarily the greatest track record developing quarterbacks. Anyway, that's not the end all be all, but every little thing you can kind of stack information gathering on these prospects early on can really help you. I think that's a great point. And when I rebuild, and I've talked about this a little bit already, but getting to know the prospects, and I want ideally, and this doesn't always work, and it kind of frustrates me when it doesn't work, but I want as many picks as I possibly can. And we kind of touched on this already, because I want those picks because they're the most flexible asset that you can possibly get. And we know that they're going to grow in value, and you can spend them in a variety of ways. Like the Michael Pittman thing, I can go out and say, okay, that player's undervalued. Let me go shopping here closer to the rookie draft to see if I can shape this team maybe a little bit sooner than I thought, maybe speed up my timeline here a little bit. And if I hit on these rookie picks as well, maybe this timeline can speed up a little bit. Now, you're diving into a kind of a murky area when you're doing that, but I think if you come at it from the standpoint of, I'm always chasing the value, and I'm always trying to stack good move on top of good move on top of good move, I think that's a recipe for success more times than not. And you're going to swing and you're going to miss sometimes, and that's okay too. But as long as you're just trying to stack the value, it's actually a very similar process to me when I'm doing a dynasty startup as well. But I want all the rookie picks I can handle. And the last point I have here is sometimes you have to get down in the dirt, in the mud, and getting down, the equivalent of getting down and dirty. I'm really trying not to make this sexual. I swear to God, I'm not. And I just made this very uncomfortable for everybody.
The waiver wire, I didn't think you were until you said something about it.
I know. I just made it worse for everybody and myself. But the waiver wire is the dirty work that needs to be done, like in season. And I'll give you a perfect example, and that would be Darren Waller. In a tight end premium league, if you were active on the waiver wire this year and you added Darren Waller, and now, so somebody who was retired, not thought of, now all of a sudden that player has value. And if you picked him up off the waiver wire before the season started, now he has value, and you can literally get something for nothing if you're active on the waiver wire this week, just this week alone. Omarion Hampton's out. If you went out and added Hassan Haskins or Kamani Vidal on the waiver wire, guess what? Those players have some value. So if you were able to add them on your waiver wire via fab bidding, you can go to the Omarion Hampton owner or manager and you can say, hey, I have Haskins. Maybe we can make a deal here. Like, I'm a rebuilding team. I have no intention of keeping Haskins on my roster long term, but he could help you out right now. Yada, yada, yada. It goes back to the first point I made about keeping all your DMs open. Don't piss anybody off, or try not to, unless, they're a dick. I don't know. But try to keep the lines of communication open so you can make a move with all 11 other or all 13 other or however many people are in your league. You can make a deal with any one of them so you can leverage anybody against anybody else in the league. And that way you can create as much value for yourself as possible. But the waiver wire, you have to be active on it every week. All it takes on Sleeper, you just look at the available, just click that available, scroll through it, read articles. We put out some of our, I don't think we necessarily put out dynasty waiver wire advice, but other companies do. Maybe once we get bigger, we can have our own website. We could have advice, on our website. Maybe that's coming someday. Who knows? But the point is, you have to pay attention. You have to get down in the dirt, and the dirt in Dynasty is the waiver wire, because typically there's not too much out there, but sometimes a Darren Waller pops up, or a Hassan Haskins pops up, or a Michael Carter pops up, or somebody like that you can get literally something for nothing. And you have to take advantage of those opportunities when they come.
Yeah, and to pair with that, it's not necessarily as simple as just going to the available tab. You got to be proactive on the waiver wire. Now I sound like I'm at some sort of self-help or sales conference where I'm saying a bunch of nothing, but there's multiple websites. I'm sure I generally go to ourlads.com and they can show you the depth chart of all the NFL teams. And something as simple as just monitoring situations and checking the depth chart can help you get ahead of some of there's always somebody in your league where you say to yourself, man, that person's really lucky. It just seems like they always get that person the week before they're needed. And looking at depth charts, monitoring situations that are going on around these teams can help you be that person. If you take a look at the Saints and you're hearing that Alvin Kamara could possibly be traded, you go and you see, okay, Kendre Miller's right behind him. I knew that, he's definitely rostered. Oh, Devin Neal, that's right. I was paying attention in the prospect cycle earlier this offseason, and I realized that Devin Neal is actually a pretty talented runner, somebody who generally wouldn't find himself in the 6th round of the NFL draft. And since he's done nothing, he's on the waiver wire. I'm going to pick him up, and then maybe Alvin Kamara gets traded, and you have the RB2 who has a shot to maybe crack more opportunity out of that backfield. It's not as simple as just going on to sleeper, but it can be simple in terms of how to utilize the waiver wire.
Yeah, and I just want to also get into team structure as well a little bit. And this is a little bit more, this might be a little out there for some people, but say you're in a super flex league, typically, somebody rosters maybe 3 to 4 quarterbacks. But if you're a rebuilding team and, let's face it, you're not necessarily trying to compete right now, using some of those roster spots on backup quarterbacks just in case something happens. Like, imagine if you had Mac Jones. Like, that's a perfect one.
Yep.
If you had Mac Jones, you could probably easily trade him for a 2nd round rookie pick right now, and that's found money. So stacking it, so just to give you an idea, a rebuilding team for me, I'm just going to go to the all elite dynasty team, and somebody was making fun of me for this in that league. Over under 8 quarterbacks that I have in that league.
Our benches are too shallow. I'm going under.
All right. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 quarterbacks in that league.
That's like 3/4 of your bench has to be quarterbacks.
I don't care. I'm not trying to win right now. Like, in a normal league, yeah, I would have 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks. That way I have plenty of depth at running back and wide receiver. So if it's a super flex league, I'm loading up on those backup quarterbacks and trying to ship them to somebody who needs them. I'm trying to bank as many 2nd and 3rd round rookie picks as I possibly can. Also, backup running backs to me are more valuable than, the 3rd string or 4th string wide receiver on a team. So the second most valuable thing that I'm trying to do, aside, assuming there's not some kind of supernatural scoring where a certain position gets a crazy bonus for whatever reason, would be the running back position. So I'm going to roster a bunch of backup 3rd string running backs, and I'm going to roster a bunch of backup quarterbacks in a super flex league, hoping that I can cash in because you're a rebuilding team, you have to use the advantages that you have. And I think the advantage of not trying to contend is I can kind of muck up my roster construction here a little bit. I'm not saying don't put out a starting lineup every week, because I think that's cockamamie and that shouldn't be allowed. But you can definitely get away with bending what would be a normal roster construction for a contending team. You can say, no, I'm going to load up on this position because I'm kind of gambling here that these players will become more valuable here in the future. So anyway, that's just something I tend to do with my rebuilding teams that, I don't know, maybe you in the audience already knew that, and you're going to call me an idiot in the chat for going on about it. Maybe you didn't know, and now you know. So that's a secret of mine that I like to employ for a rebuilding team. Any other tips? Anything we missed, Matt Babbage?
The only thing I can think of is that I regret not putting Mac Jones in that display after Thursday night.
Yeah, no, dude, Mac Jones, I think, might be the next one. the next guy to get the Sam Darnold treatment because he's
probably
really
going to
good.
get a shot. If he doesn't play another
Yeah.
snap and that's how he ends, he's probably going to get another shot.
He's going to be the Raiders quarterback next year. I can already tell. Geno, not great. Not great. Or maybe Stafford retires and maybe that's the direction they go. Who knows?
Puka get 18 targets a game.
Oh, dude, it'd be so good. It'd be so good. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Babbage_Matt10. You can follow me on Twitter at Seth_DIEWOLD. And you can follow the show on Twitter at FF Dynasty Table and let us know what are some of your rebuilding dynasty tips. Let us know in the comments. Also, throw your questions in the comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're less than 30 subs away from hitting our goal. Because that was our goal at the start, was to get monetized by the end of the year. We have 2 months left. We just need 30 or 20 some subs. I feel pretty confident that we're going to do it. So thank you so much, everybody who's listening. Matt Babbage, you have any final words of wisdom for the people tonight before we end the program?
Get your Halloween candy early.
That's good.
Eat a lot of it, and then get more Halloween candy. And then, try not to eat the rest of it because it's for the kids. We got 2 big bowls of Halloween candy out there, and they're not making it to the 31st. There's no.
You are how many days? 20 some days away from Halloween. Yeah, you're going to the store at least a couple more times.
We were at the store, and the wife said we should get Halloween candy now before it's too late. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea in the hustle and bustle of things. And then we started unloading I was like, what? It's September still.
Well, these places play tricks on you because they put the holiday stuff out, 2 months before the holiday actually happens. So
they make sure they put it in high foot traffic too. You're seeing it multiple times. It's just staring at you.
Yeah. You know who's probably not eating Halloween candy because he's such an old curmudgeon and doesn't like anything nice?
Aaron Rodgers.
That would be Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers, got news for you. Nobody cares about him. He's the luckiest SOB in the world. This division is crumbling around him, and he's literally just going to be the last man standing. It's so stupid. You have the Bengals trading for Joe Flacco, so he's one team away. Joe Flacco could go play for the Steelers next year and just complete the infinity gauntlet of AFC North teams. And there you go.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah, he's played for all of them. So, God,
they're going to lose my 50 uniform.
Joe, did you ever think that Browns was bad enough? Bengals, I don't know. But I know the Browns is like the Ravens are. Because they used to be the Browns. Anyway, let's get into that. But Joe Flacco in a Bengals uniform is just going to be weird. It's just going to be weird, man. And he's going to start this week. Try to trade Joe Flacco for a 3rd round rookie pick and see what happens. Maybe you can make that happen. Probably a 4th round rookie pick is more realistic. Anyway, nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Wiseman for Heisman, all the things. Thank you so much for watching. Click like, click subscribe. Go follow us everywhere we go except home. And until next time, be good, everybody, and we will see you later.